Breakfast pause.
Join myself and fellow wild lambs Jarrod
Yeah, get that up.
and Carl
I got a food.
as we take a trip east to the Victorian High Country. We start off with Jarrod and myself travelling east and Carl riding west to meet in the middle at St Arnaud, where we booked a couple of motel rooms that just so happened to be across the road from the pub. So pub meal it was, which you'll see is a running theme of the trip. After a few refreshments and a couple more takeaway refreshments, it was back to the motel room to watch Seinfeld reruns until early in the morning. Now the guy we booked the motel from also owns the bakery on the opposite corner of the street, so sausage rolls and pies for breakfast. Then a quick 45-minute struggle to work out how to use the world's cheapest motorcycle intercoms, and we were off. Now the sound from the intercoms don't really come through the camera very well, but let me assure you there was nothing of value spoken on this trip.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
But we eventually did get moving southeast, through Denali and Castlemaine, a quick stop to make sure everything was still there, then through Kyneton and Lansfield, and back to Carl's for some glamour shops and some Subway for lunch. Next up was Whittlesea, where after having to take a detour because of show day, we were understandably happy to be travelling north, away from Melbourne, towards the town of Yea. This is the part of the trip where it really started to feel like a different part of the country from home. With green vegetation, sweeping corners and mountain views, this was the point that it felt like we were riding for fun instead of riding to get somewhere. After resting in Yea for a bit, it was time to start thinking of where to stay for the night. Much like the rest of our lives, there wasn't much planning involved in this trip, so after picking a spot on Google Maps that looked good and picking some essentials up from RGA, we turned off the main track just past Yea. Now's a good time to discuss the bikes we took on this trip. Obviously I'm on the KTM 390 Duke, you've seen before. Not quite as road oriented as the 390 RC, but not made for off-road like the 390 Adventure. But Jarrod and Carl are riding cruisers, Jarrod with a Yamaha V-Star 650 and Carl with a Kawasaki Vulcan 900 Classic. Not exactly made for the dust and dirt we're about to ride through. And honestly, when the road runs through a town called Limestone, it was probably a big hint the road wasn't going to be sealed. But deep into the forest we went, till we finally came up on the place we were planning to stay at. And it was packed. There was over 100 people staying there. Not a chance in hell we'd be staying there with them. But we soldiered on, confident that surely just up ahead there'd be a nice spot for us to stay. But the sun kept getting lower, and so did the quality of the road, until we were travelling a track even dirt bikes would have thought twice about. Until we found this spot, and all the stress and worry of the previous road disappeared, and our only concern was how the drinks would be arranged in the ice.
Standing him up.
I'll lie him down.
Oh, lie him down.
Let me help you. After taking a look at the nearby stream, it was time for some food, drink, and a well-deserved rest. Next morning we packed up camp, obviously taking our rubbish with us, and while filling up the nearest servo noticed one of Carl's panniers had broken its mount, no doubt because of yesterday's off-roading. Nothing a strap or two couldn't fix, and before you knew it we were past Healesville, and onto what most definitely was my favourite leg of the trip, the Black Spur Drive. It's a 28-kilometre stretch of road that cuts through the lush forest landscapes of the Yarra Ranges, linking the Yarra Valley with the mountain areas around Marysville. Famous for its towering trees and spectacular valley views, the Black Spur connects Healesville with Narberthong on the Maroondah Highway as it winds its way up the Great Dividing Range. Despite the massive amount of traffic on this Melbourne Cup weekend, we still made it to Buxton Hotel in time for some pizzas and refreshments for lunch. Next up was Eildon, where we were going to take the nice scenic road north, but after the road turned gravel and a dropping of a motorcycle, we decided to take the long way around to Bonnie Doon, which was going to be our accommodation for the night.
We're going to Bonnie Doon.
So of course we had to see the house from the castle, and then amuse ourselves while we waited for our dinner booking.
An ibis is a bird that's a picnic-wrecking fuck.
But we managed to stay sane and enjoyed our second pub meal of the day, where we then went back to our room to watch Netflix and decide where we'd go the next day. After waking up to another amazing day weather-wise, we decided to head to Mount Buller for some more fantastic mountain twisties. Through Mansfield and past Marrijig, the mountain ranges loomed over us until we were up amongst them. And while there were some spectacular views, including this one that Jarrod just had to stop and enjoy, it was a bit of a slower paced road than yesterday, though if you enjoy hairpins, this road is for you. Now myself and another wild lamb were here last year during winter, but Jarrod and Carl hadn't been here before, so we took a little tour around the village, hoping to find somewhere to eat some lunch. But we were out of luck, so we travelled back down for the nearest pub meal we could find, which turned out to be Mary G. After our fourth pub meal of the trip, we backtracked all the way through Mansfield and Bonnydoon and back to Yea, where after something like 5 hours of riding, we needed a little lie down in the grass. But we had plans to stay at Carl's house for the night, so we had to push on. Though that didn't mean we couldn't make a few stops and see a few sights along the way. One of those stops was to visit Carl's dad. He's been riding the bikes longer than we've been alive, and by influencing Carl to ride motorbikes, he's indirectly responsible for the wild lambs existing. So a quick stop in Broadford, and it was a short hop to Kilmore to Carl's, where we had our fifth and last pub meal of the trip. Now myself and Jarrod were just going to roll a sleeping bag out in Carl's lounge room, but after the wild animal noises coming from Jarrod, I had to find another room to sleep in. We were met by another perfect day, a day in which myself and Jarrod would be travelling the 350 k's or so home without Carl, and after some fuel and some Macca's breakfast, we were off. We didn't take the scenic route on the way home, instead heading straight for Kyneton and onto the freeway. It had been a long 4 days, and both of us had to head to work the next day. And just like that, our trip felt it was over. A couple of stops outside Bendigo and at St Arnaud, then splitting off just after Minyip as Jarrod went away to his house and I went to mine. The most interesting part of the trip home was seeing this guy in Minyip again. I guess familiar sights like these let me know I was almost home. But after saying goodbye to Jarrod, it was a short ride to the Western Highway, and onto even more familiar roads, ones I ride to and from work every day. The last leg of the trip alone gave me some time to reflect on our adventure. I think by and large it was a huge success. We had just absolutely perfect weather, no rain or even much wind. Camping was mostly fine. We didn't really bring proper cooking gear and the tarp setup was a pain, so I'll bring a tent next time. But the biggest thing I think Jarrod and myself learned was our seats are just not comfortable after an hour or so. For the last half of the trip I was sitting on my pillow, so some sort of seat cushion would be needed before the next trip. And the next trip has already been planned for just after New Year's, so there shouldn't be as much time between videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like or a comment or hit subscribe or play this video on repeat, and I'll see you in the next one.